So we are reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. We are on chapter 10, page number 82 of the PDF.
The week passed quickly. I had listened over and over again to the tape of last week's session. How was I approaching the state of renewal? I did not feel particularly enlightened. And now spirits would be sent back to help me. But what was I supposed to do? When would I find out? Would I be up to the task? I knew I must wait and be patient. I remembered the words of the poet master. Patience and timing. Everything comes when it must come. Everything will be clear to you in time. But you must have a chance to digest the knowledge that we have given to you already. So I would wait.
So now this is very important, right? Patience and timing. Everything happens at the right time. We have something called a probability theory, right? That the probability of this event taking place is X, right? Now, and I have a system of calculating from 1 to 10. So if the probability is more than 70, I generally say that, yeah, this will manifest. Now, if it is less than 7 in my counting system, then it may not manifest. But patience is very important. We need to understand that when we go into expanded states of consciousness, then time and space does not exist the way that we perceive they exist, right? So everything will happen, but it will happen at its right time. The ego mind, the small guy, makes us become impatient, right? It wants things to be done in the way that it wants, but that's not how the universe functions. So that's why we must have patience. Patience and timing become very, very important.
At the beginning of this session, Catherine related a fragment of a dream she had had several nights ago. In the dream, she was living in her parents' house and a fire had broken out during the night. She was in control, helping to evacuate the house, but her father was dawdling and seemingly indifferent to the urgency of the situation. She rushed him outside. Then he remembered something he had left in the house and he sent Catherine back into the raging fire to retrieve the object. She could not remember what it was. I decided not to interpret the dream yet, but to wait and see if the opportunity would arise while she was hypnotized.
So again, dreams are a means of our subconscious to communicate with us. So symbolism plays a huge part in dream analysis. What did this symbol mean? What does this event mean to us, right? That interpretation becomes very, very important. Now, of course, Dr. Brian Weiss is waiting to take her into a hypnotic state to actually get the full gist of the dream and also to be able to maybe figure out what was the item that her father wanted her to retrieve.
She quickly entered in deep hypnotic trance. I see a woman with a hood over her head, not covering her face, just on her hair. Then she was silent. Can you see that now? The hood? I lost it. I see some type of black material, brocade material with a gold design on it. I see a building with some type of structural points on it. White. Do you recognize the building? No. Is it a large building? No. There's a mountain in the background with some snow on the top of it. But the grass is green in the valley where we are at. Are you able to go into the building? Yes, it's made of some type of marble, very cold to the touch. Is it some sort of temple or religious building? I don't know. I thought it might be a prison. Prison, I repeated. Are the people in the building, around it? Yes, some soldiers. They have black uniforms, black with gold shoulder pads, gold tassels hanging off, black helmets with some type of gold, something pointed and gold on the top of the helmet. and a red sash around the waist. Are there any soldiers around you? Maybe 2 or 3. Are you there? I'm somewhere, but I'm not in the building, but I'm nearby. Look around, see if you can find yourself. The mountains are there, and the grass, and the white building. Are there other buildings too? If there are other buildings, they're not situated near this one. I see one isolated with some type of wall built behind it. A wall. Do you think it's a fort or a prison or something like that? It might be, but it's very isolated. Why is that important to you? Do you know the name of the town or country where you are, where the soldiers are? I keep seeing Ukraine. Ukraine? I repeated, fascinated by the diversity of our lifetimes. Do you see a year? Does that come to you, or a period of time?
Okay, so again, when we are going into altered states also, and especially in the advanced graduate level programs, these dates you can actually ask and it flashes in your head. The dates, the time, the period, the place they are in, the names of people, they can actually start flashing. So when you are under hypnotic state in an altered state, all this data can start coming at you.
1717, she answered hesitatingly, then corrected herself. 1758. 1758. There are many soldiers. I don't know what their purpose is, with long swords that curve. What else do you see or hear? I inquired. I see a fountain where they water the horses. Do the soldiers ride horses? Yes. Are the soldiers known by any other name? Do they call themselves anything special? She listened. I don't hear that. Are you among them? No. Her answers were again a child's, short and often monosyllabic. I had to be very active interviewer.
So
But you
again,
see,
when you're in these altered states, you can be whispering, right? You can talk in broken up sentences. So the person, the monitor, in this case, the monitor is Dr. Brian West. You have to be very attentive to actually get the data, otherwise you can miss stuff. Now, of course, we've got recording instruments, etc., and then you can rewind and replay the recordings. But yeah, if you get it in the first shot, it's always better.
but you're seeing them nearby? Yes. Are you in the town? Yes. Do you live there? I believe so. Good. See if you can find yourself and where you live. I see some very ragged clothes. I see just a child, a boy. His clothes are ragged. He's cold. Does he have a home in the town? There was a long pause. I don't see that, she continues. She seemed to be having some difficulty connecting with this lifetime. She was somewhat vague in her answers, somehow unsure. Okay, do you know the boy's name? No. What happens to the boy? Go with him. See what happens. Someone he knows is a prisoner. A friend? A relative? I believe it's his father. Her answers were brief. Are you the boy? I'm not sure. Do you know how he feels about his father being in prison? Yes, he's very afraid. Afraid they might kill him. What has his father done? He has stolen something from the soldiers, some papers or something. The boy doesn't understand completely. No, he might never see his father again. Can he get to see his father at all? No. Do they know for how long his father will be in the prison or if he will live? No, she answered. Her voice quavered. She was very upset, very sad. She was not providing much detail, yet she was visibly agitated by the events she was witnessing and experiencing. You can feel what the boy is feeling, I went on. That kind of fear and anxiety. Do you feel it? Yes. Again, she was silent. What happens? Go ahead in time now. I know it's hard. Go ahead in time. Something happens. His father is executed. How does he feel now? It was for something he never did, but they execute people for no reason at all. The boy must be very upset about this. I don't believe he understands fully what has happened. Does he have other people to turn to? Yes, but his life will be very hard. What becomes of the boy? I don't know. He will probably die. She sounded so sad. She was again silent, then seemed to be looking around. What are you seeing? I see a hand closing around something white. I don't know what it is. She fell silent again, and minutes passed. What else do you see? I asked. Nothing. Darkness. She had either died or somehow disconnected from the sad boy who lived in the Ukraine more than 200 years ago. Have you left the boy? Yes, she whispered. She was resting. What did you learn from that lifetime? Why was it important? People cannot be judged hastily. You have to be fair with someone. Many lives were ruined by being hasty in our judgments. The boy's life was short and hard because of that judgment against his father. Yes, she was silent again. Are you seeing something else now? Do you hear anything? No. Again, there was the brief answer and then silence. For some reason, this brief lifetime had been particularly grueling. I gave her instructions to rest. Rest, feel peacefulness. Your body is healing itself. Your soul is resting. Are you feeling better? Rested? It was difficult for the little boy, very hard, but now you're resting again. Your mind can take you to other places, other times, other memories. Are you resting? Yes. I decided to pursue the dream fragment about the burning house, her father's unconcerned dawdling, and his sending her back into the conflagration in order to retrieve something of his. I have a question now about the dream you had with your father. You can remember it now? It's safe. You're in a deep trance. Do you remember? Yes. You went back into the house to get something. Do you remember that? Yes, it was a metal box. What was in it that he wanted so badly to send you back into a burning house? His stamps and his coins that he saves, she answered. Her detailed recollection of the dream content under hypnosis contrasted dramatically with her sketchy recall while awake. Hypnosis was a powerful tool, not only providing access to the most remote, hidden areas of the mind, but also allowing a much more detailed memory. Were his stamps and coins very important to him? Yes. But to risk your life to go back into a burning house just for stamps and coins? She cut me off. He didn't think he was risking it. He thought it was safe. Yes. Then why didn't he go back instead of you? Because he thought I could go faster. I see. Was there a risk to you though? Yes, but he didn't realize that. Was there more meaning to that dream for you about your relationship with your father? I don't know. He didn't seem to be in much of a hurry to get out of the burning house. No.
Okay, so one thing over here, right? He says in a paragraph just before, hypnosis was a powerful tool, not only providing access to the most remote hidden areas of the mind, but also allowing a more detailed memory. Now, when you look at things, right, the small guy will notice only a few things, and that is only what you are interested in, technically speaking. But the big guy takes in all the detail, right? So this is the same thing which is happening when she was consciously wanting to talk about the dream. She was recalling from the small guy, so naturally the information was sketchy and she didn't have all the details. Now under hypnosis, you're accessing the big guy, so all the details become available.
Why was he so leisurely? You were fast, you saw the danger. Because he tries to hide from things. I seize this moment to interpret part of the dream. Yes, it's an old pattern of his, and you do things for him like fetching the box. I hope he can learn from you. I have a feeling that the fire represents time running out, that you realize the danger and that he doesn't. While he dawdles and sends you back for material objects, you know much more and have much to teach him, but he doesn't seem to want to learn.
So again, symbolism in the dream, right? Dr. Brian West is attempting to basically decode the dream now. So the point is that any symbol can be interpreted in so many ways, right? So it depends on whether, what's your interpretation about it?
No, she agreed, he doesn't. That's how I see the dream, but you can't force him. Only he can realize this. Yes, she agreed again, and her voice became deep and husky. It is unimportant that our bodies get burned in fires if we don't need them. A master spirit had shed an entirely different perspective on the dream. I was surprised at this sudden entrance, and I could only parrot back the thought.
So again, the body is really not important, right? The consciousness, the conscious awareness is technically much more important because the body cannot run without that conscious awareness. It's like this: if you have a computer, but you don't have the operating system to run it, the computer is useless.
We don't need our bodies? No. We go through so many stages where we are here. When we are here, we shed a baby body, go into a child's, from child to an adult into old age. Why shouldn't we go one step beyond and shed the adult body and go on a spiritual plane?
So this is absolutely right, right? When we transcend the body, we are still alive. The conscious awareness is still there. So we live in those higher states of consciousness without a body. In most cases, when we go into these states, many times you'll just see yourself as a ball of light. You'll see others as just a ball of light.
That is what we do. We don't just stop growing, we continue to grow. When we get to the spiritual plane, we keep growing there too. We go through different stages of development. When we arrive, we are burned out. We have to go through a renewal stage, a learning stage, and a stage of decision. We
So again,
decide.
again, when we transcend, right? Again, we just finished a lifeline program, and in the Monroe terminology, there are various stages or focus levels that you go to once you transcend. It's very beautifully mapped out. Even in shamanism, it is mapped out. So every culture has a basically a process by which when you die, where you go. And there's a lot of similarity between all the processes or all the systems that they are talking about, right? So when we burn or when we leave the body, right, we need to understand what we need to do there. Then it becomes, the transition automatically becomes easier.
We decide when we want to return, where and for what reasons. Some choose not to come back. They choose to go on to another stage of development, and they stay in spirit form. Some for longer than others before they return. It is all growth and learning, continuous growth. Our body is just a vehicle for us while we are here. It is our soul and our spirit that lasts forever.
So again, the soul or spirit automatically lasts forever, and development and growth never stops. We keep developing until we reach the Godhead, until we reach oneness, until we reach wholeness, right? Where we know everything. Growth is always taking place. Anyone who stagnates is basically killing themselves, right? We have to keep growing. We have to do new things. We have to continuously learn new things. That is what we are here for at the end of the day.
I did not recognize the voice or style. A new master was speaking and speaking of important knowledge. I wanted to know more about these spiritual realms. Is learning in the physical state faster? Are there reasons that people don't all stay in the spiritual state? No. Learning in the spiritual state is much faster, far accelerated from that in the physical state. But we choose what we need to learn. If we need to come back to work through a relationship, we come back.
So this is important, right? We choose what we want to learn. We create a life plan. We actually come here to execute the life plan that we have chosen in that altered state or in that expanded state of consciousness and mind. So, blaming anyone for what a life situation is not a good thing, because ultimately at the end of the day, you'll realize that you only chose whatever you are experiencing.
Bhaiya,
Yes.
If we, like they say, we've chosen what it is, then actually when we die, we should remember everything.
Yes, absolutely. So
we should already know what we have to do next, no?
No. So what happens? You came with a plan, right? A student joins the science class, science stream, right? Now during the semesters, the child is not doing science; he's doing something else, right? Now, when you go back, you know at that exalted state or in that expanded state, you know what your plan was. So now what you're going to do is you're going to review yourself that, okay, what did I decide to do and what did I land up doing? Now, if that doesn't match, that means you got to come back to learn the lesson simply because you wanted to learn the lesson, right?
Right. Got it.
Okay. So we decide our life. We decide where we'll be born. We decide what kind of parents we need. We decide what is the life situation in which we will be born. Okay. And then experience the experience for the experience. Now, if the small guy comes into the middle, and that is when you start getting derailed. And the universe will constantly send you messages that, boss, you're off the track. Please come back on track. So subtle messages will be sent. A thing will appear over and over in your life, or someone will keep telling you something over and over. This indicates that you've gone off track, right? And you need to focus your attention on what is being told to you. So that becomes very important.
Thank you.
No, learning in the spiritual state is much faster, far accelerated from that in the physical state. But we choose what we need to learn. If we need to come back to work through a relationship, we come back. If we are finished with that, we go on. In spiritual form, you can always contact those that are in physical state if you choose to, but only if there is importance there. if you have to tell them something that they must know. How do you make contact? How does the message come through? To my surprise, Catherine answered. Her whisper was faster and firmer. Sometimes you can appear before that person and look the same way you did when you were here. Other times you just make a mental contact. Sometimes the messages are cryptic, but most often the person knows what it pertains to. They understand. It's mind-to-mind contact.
Okay, so again, nothing is really hidden. There was this movie, Demolition Man. Okay, you all can see that they actually have mind-to-mind contact and they have a relationship through mind-to-mind contact, not in a physical way, right? So that's an interesting movie to see, Demolition Man.
I spoke to Catherine. The knowledge that you have now, this information, this wisdom, which is very important, why is it not accessible to you when you are awake and in the physical state? I guess I wouldn't understand it. I'm not capable of understanding it.
So this is again very important statement, right? All of us have a capacity. When we start exceeding our capacity, that's when the click out occurs. That's when the you go to sleep, you get out of the scene. But having said that, when we can understand what level we are at, we can start raising the bar and we can start connecting more and more, so that more awareness starts to come into our field. Our perception levels also start to go up.
Then perhaps I can teach you to understand it so that it doesn't frighten you and so that you learn.
So again, you're in school and then it frightens you. So naturally, you're not going to be able to stay in school.
Yes, when you hear the voices of the masters, they say things similar to what you are telling me now. You must share a great deal of information. I was intrigued at the wisdom she possessed when she was in this state. Yes, she replied simply. And this comes from your own mind, but they have put it there. So she gave the credit to the masters. Yes, I acknowledged. How do I best communicate it back to you so that you grow and lose your fears? You have already done that, she answered softly. She was right. Her fears were nearly gone. Once the hypnotic regressions had begun, her clinical progress had been incredibly rapid.
So again, once you connect to the problem, once you start understanding and become aware of what the issue is, healing automatically starts to take place.
What lessons do you need to learn now? What is the most important thing you can learn during this lifetime so that you can continue to grow and prosper?
So this is a basic statement, right? This is a question that all of us should be asking ourselves. Why have we come here? What are the lessons that we need to learn? What do we need to do to grow and prosper?
Trust, she answered quickly. She had known what her principal task was. Trust, I repeated, surprised by the quickness of her retort. Yes, I must learn to have faith, but also to trust people. I don't. I think everybody is trying to do evil to me. That makes me stay away from people and situations that I probably shouldn't stay away from. It's keeping me with other people that I should break away from. Her insight was tremendous when she was in this superconscious state. She knew her weaknesses and her strengths. She knew the areas that needed attention and work, and she knew what to do to improve matters. The only problem was that these insights needed to reach her conscious mind and needed to be applied to her waking life. Superconscious insight was fascinating, but by itself, it was not enough to transform her life.
So this becomes important, right? Our big guy knows everything. The more deeply we can connect with the big guy and get downloads into our conscious mind, the more aware we start becoming. And that's the basis of all the programs that we are doing in awareness, to expand awareness so that we can connect to a deeper state of our own consciousness.
Who are these people to break away from? I asked. She paused. I am afraid of Becky. I'm afraid of Stuart. That somehow harm will come to me from them. Can you break away from that? Not completely, but from some of their ideas, yes. Stuart is trying to keep me in prison, and he is succeeding. He knows that I'm afraid. He knows I'm afraid to be away from him, and he uses that knowledge to keep me with him. And Becky? She's constantly trying to break down my faith in the people that I have faith in. When I see good, she sees evil, and she tries to plant those seeds in my mind.
So again, it's always a perspective. Nothing is good or bad. Nothing is good or evil, right? What is our perception about something actually changes everything.
And she tries to plant those seeds in my mind. I'm learning to trust people I should trust, but she fills me with doubts about them. And that's her problem. I can't let her make me think her way.
So again, conscious awareness as to what is pulling you down and what is pulling you up. When you're looking at it from the left side of the grid, automatically you will be being pulled down.
In her superconscious state, Catherine was able to pinpoint major character flaws in both Becky and Stuart. The hypnotized Catherine would make an excellent psychiatrist, empathic and unerringly intuitive. The awake Catherine did not possess these attributes. It was my task to bridge the gulf. Her dramatic clinical improvement meant that some of this was seeping through. I attempted more bridge building. Who can you trust? I asked. Think about it. Who are the people you can trust and learn from and get closer to? Who are they? I can trust you, she whispered. I knew this, but I knew she needed to trust people in her everyday life even more. Yes, you can. You are close to me, but you must get closer to other people in your life too. People who can be with you more than I can. I wanted her to be complete and independent, not dependent on me. I can trust my sister. I don't know the others. I can trust Stuart, but only to a certain extent. He does care about me, but he's confused. In his confusion, he unknowingly is doing me harm.
So again, in her conscious mind, she doesn't know what is happening with Stuart. But in the subconscious mind, because everything is interrelated and connected, she has this information.
Yes, it is true. Is there another man that you can trust? I can trust Robert, she answered. He was another physician in the hospital. They were good friends. Yes, maybe there are still more for you to meet in the future. Yes, she conceded. The idea of future knowledge was distractingly intriguing. She had been so accurate about the past. She, through the masters, had known specific, secret facts. Could they also know facts from the future? If so, could we share this foreknowledge? 1,000 questions burst into my mind.
So again, if we can have knowledge about the past, we can have knowledge about the future, right? There's one book by PMH Atwater. She calls it future memory. That means our memory about our future, right? If you really look at it, there is no time and space in the expanded states of consciousness. So everything is happening at the same time. That means our future is also happening right now. It's just that we are not paying focused attention to that. That's why we do not know what will happen in the future, but it is absolutely possible to get to know that.
1,000 questions burst into my mind. When you find contact with your superconscious mind like now and have this wisdom, do you also develop abilities in the psychic realm? Is it possible for you to look into the future? We have done much in the past. That is possible, she conceded, but I see nothing now.
So again, whenever we want to see something, if it is to our benefit, then we see it. If it is not to our benefit and we are in the right state of mind and consciousness and our intent is filled with clarity, then we may not see it because it's not yet ready to manifest.
It is possible, I echoed. I believe so. Can you do this without being frightened? Can you go into the future and obtain information of a neutral sort that will not be frightening to you? Can you see the future? Her answer was swift. I don't see that. They will not allow it. I knew she meant the masters.
So again, if you're not meant to see the future, if you can't handle it, it's better not to see it. That's why everyone can't be predictive, can't predict stuff. Although the instinct is there, but we don't use that faculty enough. So naturally, we can't predict stuff.
Are they around you now? Yes. Are they talking to you? No. They monitor everything. So being monitored, she was not permitted to peer into the future. Perhaps we had nothing to gain personally from such a glimpse. Perhaps the adventure would have made Catherine too anxious. Perhaps we were not yet prepared to cope with this information. I did not push it. The spirit that was around you before, Gideon, yes. What does he need? Why is he near? Do you know him? No, I don't believe so. But he protects you from danger? Yes. The masters, I don't see them. Sometimes they have messages for me, messages that help you and help me. Are these messages available to you even when they're not speaking? Do they put thoughts in your mind? Yes. Do they monitor how far you can go? What you can remember? Yes. So there is a purpose in this explanation of lifetimes. Yes. For you and for me, to teach us, to bring us the disappearance of fear. There are many ways of communication. They chose many to show that they do exist. Whether Catherine was hearing their voices, visualizing past images and vistas, experiencing psychic phenomena, or having thoughts and ideas placed in her mind, the purpose was the same: to show that they do exist and, even beyond that, to help us, to aid us on our path by providing insights and knowledge to help us become godlike through wisdom. Do you know why they have chosen you? No, to be a channel. This was a delicate question, since the awake Catherine could not even listen to the tapes. No, she softly whispered. Does it frighten you? Sometimes. And other times? Not? Yes. It can be reassuring, I added. We know now that we are eternal, so we lose our fear of death.
So this is very important, right? When we go into these expanded states, during the Lifeline program, I can be sure that people who attended Lifeline, their fear of death will go because they have experienced what can happen after they die, right? So that becomes very, very important.
Yes, she agreed. She paused. I must learn to trust. She had returned to her lifetime's major lesson. When I am told something, I must learn to trust what I am told. When the person is knowledgeable. Certainly, there are people not to trust, I added. Yes, but I am confused. And the people I know I should trust. I fight against that feeling, and I don't want to trust anybody. She was silent as I again admired her insight. Last time we talked about you as a child in a garden with horses. Do you remember your sister's wedding? A little. Was there more to gather from that time? Do you know? Yes. Would it be worthwhile to go back now and explore it? It won't come back now. There are so many things in a lifetime. There is so much knowledge to attain from each lifetime. Yes, we must explore, but it won't come back now.
So again, we've had tens of thousands of lifetimes, right? Now, when we are going into a regression session like this, the lifetime which is important for that particular session will turn up. This is something that even in any healing practice, if you're doing any healing, we must trust the process that, whatever needs to be healed, that is what will show up. We need to trust that, right? So in this also, we need to trust that whatever needs to be done, that is what we can do.
So I turned again to her troubled relationship with her father. Your relationship with your father is another area, one that has affected you deeply in this life. Yes, she answered simply. It is another area to explore yet, too. You've had much to learn from this relationship. Compare it to the little boy in the Ukraine who lost his father at an early age. And this loss did not happen to you this time. And yet, having your father here, even though certain hardships were less, was more of a burden, she concluded. Thoughts, she added, thoughts.
So many times, a lot of stuff is just in our thoughts, right? It's not real. So if we can rehash our thoughts, everything can shift for us.
What thoughts? I sensed she was in a new area. About the anesthesia. When they give you anesthesia, can you hear? You can still hear, she had
So
answered.
again, the sense of hearing is the first sense to develop. And when a person is passing on, it is the last sense to leave. So that's why when you're talking to people who are sleeping or you're talking around people who are in a coma, you need to be careful because the sense of hearing may still be active. Okay, so you need to be careful what you're saying around a person who's in coma.
About the anesthesia, when they give you anesthesia, can you hear? You can still hear. She had answered her own question. She was whispering rapidly now, becoming excited. Your mind is very much aware of what's going on. They were talking about my choking, about the possibility of me choking when they did the surgery on my throat.
So many times now people are having these experiences, and especially with the the methods of reviving a person, this is becoming more and more common that although a person is under anesthesia, they still hear everything that is being talked about in the operation theater.
I remembered Catherine's vocal cord surgery, which was performed just a few months before her first appointment with me. She had been anxious prior to the surgery, but she was absolutely terrified upon awakening in the recovery room. It had taken the nursing staff hours to calm her. Now it appeared that what was said by the surgeons during the operation, during the time she was under deep anesthesia, had precipitated her terror.
So again, while the patient is under anesthesia, you have to be careful as to what you're speaking about.
My mind flipped back to medical school and my surgery rotation. I remember the casual conversations during operations while the patients were anesthetized. I remember the jokes, the cursing, the arguments, and the surgeon's temper tantrums. What had the patients heard at a subconscious level? How much registered to affect their thoughts and emotions, their fears and anxieties after they awakened? Was the post operative course, the patient's very recovery from the surgery, influenced positively or negatively by the remarks made during the operation? Had anyone died because of negative expectations overheard during surgery? Had they, feeling hopeless, just given up? Do you remember what they were saying? I asked. That they had to put a tube down. When they took the tube out, my throat might swell up. They didn't think I could hear. But you did. Yes, that's why I had all the problems. After today's session, Catherine no longer had any fear of swallowing or choking. It was as simple as that. All the anxiety, she continued. I thought I would choke.
So again, the doctors were talking about something and the patient heard, and it created a problem for the patient.
Do you feel free? I asked. Yes, you can reverse what they did. Can I? Yes, you are. They should be very careful of what they say. I remember it now. They put a tube in my throat, and then I couldn't talk afterwards to tell them anything. Now you're free. You did hear them. Yes, I heard them talk. She fell silent for a minute or two, then began to turn her head from side to side. She seemed to be listening to something. You seem to be hearing messages. Do you know where that message came from? I was hoping the masters would appear. Someone told me, was her cryptic answer. Somebody was speaking to you, but they're gone. I tried to bring them back. Now, see if you can bring back spirits with messages for us to help us out. They come only when they want to, not when I choose, she answered firmly. You don't have any control over it? No.
Okay, so now when we go into expanded states, many times, when you call out to a spirit, they can actually appear and connect with you. You can also find the spirit by the ident, by the feel that you have about the spirit. You can actually trace. This is also something that is written in Robert Monroe's book. So yes, while in a hypnotic state, the spirits will come and go. You don't have so much of control. But if you yourself are going into an altered state of consciousness, you can actually find and locate people in those states of consciousness.
Okay, I conceded. But the message about the anesthesia was very important for you. That was the source of your choking. It was important for you, not me, she retorted. Her answer reverberated through my mind. She would be cured of the terror of choking, yet this revelation was nevertheless more important for me than for her.
So now, basically, when you look at this, she is only getting that information, so it will help her choking. But by Dr. Brian Weiss actually writing about this, so many millions of people have got this information. which becomes more important. So that's why this message became more important for Dr. Brian Weiss than for Catherine.
I was doing the healing. Her simple answer contained many levels of meaning. I felt that if I truly understood these levels, these resonating octaves of meanings, I would advance a quantum leap into the understanding of human relationships. Perhaps the helping was more important than the cure.
So that's it, right? Helping and this information being passed to millions of people.
For me to help you, I asked? Yes, you can undo what they did. You have been undoing what they did. She was resting. We had both learned a great lesson.
So again, when we revisit these events, right, even when we are doing biofield tuning, stuff comes up, what you experienced previously. When you start understanding that, automatically the issue starts to dissolve. Even in the excursion, we have an exercise called release and recharge. When you go into that exercise, many times certain issues that you are facing today, events which happened in the past which are connected to that particular issue will suddenly show up in your conscious awareness, which will cure you of the issue that you are experiencing now. So again, all these matters are about understanding what is happening. And once you understand it, you can transcend it.
Shortly after her third birthday, my daughter Amy came running over to me, hugging me around the legs. She looked up and said, "Daddy, I've loved you for 40,000 years." I looked down at her little face and I felt very, very happy.
So now what does this imply, right? Till before he was doing this regression and this started happening to Catherine, he may have told his daughter that never, you could never not have lived for 40,000 years. But now he knows that it is actually possible. We can stop here today. This chapter is over.